Hey everybody, Matt here with Take Roads Less Traveled, and today we're working on a 2011 GMC Acadia. We're changing out the spark plugs. This is a pretty easy job, nothing too involved, but you need to make sure you have some of the right tools for it, as with any job. But we're going to dive right into it, show you how this is done so you can keep your Acadia running well. With the hood open, first thing we're going to do is pull this oil cap, and then we're just going to pull this cover straight up. Now, I've already gotten mine loose, and as you can see, my oil cap is coming with my cover. The reason for that is because my fill tube, that little tab is broken, so I just kind of pull it off all as one. Kind of sucks. But you're going to want to pull that oil cap. Go ahead and pull off that cover, just like I did. It just lifts right off of these two little tie downs there, and that third one up front, and get it out of the way. Now, that oil tube, you do not have to pull it out. You'll notice mine's missing. Yours should be sitting there. So don't pull it out like I pulled mine out, okay? But as you can see, we have a few things we need to disconnect here in order to be able to take this intake manifold cover off. Well, not cover, the intake manifold off. We're gonna need to disconnect our air intake, and we also have a few hoses here that need to get disconnected and pulled out of the way. Same with this wiring harness, getting this out of the way. These ones right here, getting those out of the way so that we can get this entire intake manifold off. So let's get right into it. I'm going to start with this intake tube, this section specifically right here. Get this out of the way. So first, just unplug our sensor, take that wire out of the way. You've got two clamps. You can either use a flathead screwdriver or you can use a socket to loosen up these clamps. We've also got this small hose that plugs in right down here. Get that out of the way. Like I said, just loosen up these clamps. Now that we have the intake off, we're going to remove our brake booster hose. This little piece right here just clips on to that post. Just unclip that. And then your hose right here, just take a flathead screwdriver, get it down in there, and just kind of pry that hose back a little bit at a time. You don't need to yank real hard or anything like that. And then the last thing is this connection right here. All you do, press in on this gray piece, and then just wiggle it off while holding that gray piece pressed in. There we go. Fish that around the electrical. There. That's now out of the way. Now, we do need to take care of this line. We'll get to that in a second. Let's go ahead and get our electrical. So these have these little zip tie posts that are on here. I like to just snip it because then you can just pull your wire out, your loom, and then you can actually feed the zip tie strip through there. And what I'll do is I'll clip this top one, and then I'll just put a new zip tie through that slot and zip tie a smaller one, and then just zip tie around that so that I still actually have something to hold that loom. This one was already broken when I got the car, unfortunately. So we're just gonna kind of move that to the other side of the power steering pump, or I should say the reservoir. Move both of those over, get those out of the way. This big loom, this is your main loom. We're gonna undo that 10mm bolt to get that out. We'll do that, and then we'll get onto this hose right here. That bolt out, you can just kind of move this out of the way. It does have a little retainer right down here, which will, I think I'm just gonna snip that because that's just a zip tie. We're gonna get to this one. This is one of these weird ones. It actually travels all the way back, and if you, it's really hard to show with the camera because you really can't, unfortunately. But if you feel all the way to the base of it, on what is the driver's side of the vehicle, there's a little switch or like a little tab on there that you pull forward, and then that allows you to pull that hose up and out of the way. So here we go. So if you look, so on the base of it right here, that little clip right there, you'll just pull that. Sorry for the camera, guys. That little clip, that little nub you see right there, you just put your pressure on it and take care of it like that. All right, and then we're gonna take off the throttle body. This is actually one of those ones to where some guys say you need to, some guys say you don't. I found it's easier if you do. You have a sensor on the back. Right there, you have a sensor on the back that you need to get out. That gray tab needs to get moved back out of the way so you can actually unlock it. So that little gray tab, you move back, then you just press down and it unplugs. Nice and easy. And then you've got 4 10mm bolts on it. 1, 2, and then corresponding on the underside, 3, 4. And then that whole throttle body will come right off. We need to remove the purge valve sensor. I almost forgot all about that. So on this one, clip is on the bottom for the harness. What you're gonna do is just press that, pull out your plug, and then there's a 10mm on the back of it. On the back side of it. Let me see if I can show you guys. Right down there. You can see it right there. Little 10mm. This one's pretty easy as well. It's kind of a little tiny elbow hose just to have a little more space. You don't have to pull that off. Like I said, I just did it so I had a little more space. Trying not to have my arms in the way of the camera for you guys. Now be careful with pulling this out because this isn't really that long of a bolt. And you don't want to drop it and lose it. Well, actually it is a longer bolt than I thought. We'll put that one up here, keep that out of the way. And then this just kind of wiggles out of the way. To get the manifold off, like I said, just kind of pull this little foam cover back a little bit. I put a little tear in mine doing it. You got that 13 there, and then you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, this should be able to just come out. But again, she's never... Oh, whew. Okay. Little oomph. And then you gotta wiggle it out, and there you go. She's out. Now, super important thing. Right now. This is your intake right down in here. I move this so you guys can see a little bit better. There we go. So these are your intake runners. Here's your gasket. We're just gonna pull that out of the way. If you get the full kit, it also comes with the little rubber seals and everything. But what I'm gonna do right now, because I don't want anything falling down in these, I'm just gonna take and stuff a little towel down into each and every one of these. And the reason for that is because I don't want nothing going down in there. I don't want a bolt, don't want a spark plug, I don't want dirt, I don't want anything falling in. I also did the same down at my oil fill. Like I said, if you got your tube in there, that manifold might be a little harder to get off. I'm not sure because my tube came off with it because that tab is broken. But like I said, I want to do this. I don't want anything falling in there. You could just cover the whole thing with a towel, I guess. That would work too, but that works for me. All right, so you got your rear plugs, 1, 2, 3, and you got your front plugs, which are right here, 1, 2, 3. Actually, technically, I guess it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think is the order that they're in. But I have a misfire on cylinder number 3. Little flashing check engine light of death if you keep driving. So we're gonna get this changed out. I'm just gonna do all 6 because they need it anyway, and it's just part of routine maintenance. So time to get these coil on plugs taken off and get into the spark plugs. I'm just gonna show you how to do it on one, and then you guys can, you know how to do all the rest. What you're gonna need is a 5/8 socket, spark plug socket. You're going to want a long extension, like one of these 6-inch extensions. I prefer to have a swivel joint as well, one of these right here. And then I also like to have a second one of these 6-inch extensions after that swivel. That gives me plenty of space for these front ones. For the rear ones, it's scratch the second extension. and then we can get these out. So like I said, I'll show you how to do one of these, and then you know how to do all of them and make life real easy for you. Okay. All right, I think you guys can see this. So we're just gonna focus on this right here. First thing we're gonna do is, I don't mess up my camera here. There we go, I had to pull the screwdriver out. All right, first thing we're gonna do is unplug. So we're just gonna take and push down on this little tab, and then that comes right off. Nice and easy. And then take a 10mm, and you've got a retaining bolt right here. Gonna pop that loose. And you don't want to drop anything, so once you get it up a little ways, just grab the bottom of the head, hold it into the socket. There we go. Got a little honeybee right by me. And then just kind of wiggle and pull at the same time. And there's your coil unplug. Nice and easy. And if you look straight down in there, here's your spark plug. Get you guys set back up here. Make sure y'all can see what I'm doing here. All right, 5/8 plug socket, extension. Get that down on there. Now these front ones, you don't really need a swivel for. It's mainly for the rears that you want it. So, or if you've got one of those like really, really long extensions, those work well too on these front ones. Now, always change your plugs when your engine is cold. You don't want to change them any other way. Also, these are iridium plugs from the factory, so make sure you're getting the correct spark plugs. Like I said, I'll show you which ones I've got. The nice thing with iridiums is they're pre-gapped on these Acadias, and well, it'd be the Traverses, the Acadias, the Enclave, and the Saturn Outlook for these first gens, as well as with the facelifted ones. What is that, like 2000? I don't remember the first year they came out, 2007 or something like that, I think. But anyway, it's like 46 thousandths is the gap. So this one doesn't look too bad. Like I said, nice thing is on iridiums is they last a long time. So, all right. So here's one spark plug, and there you go, nice and easy. And then replacement is this guy right here. So this is an AC Delco 126-816-60 41-109. That is spark plug for it. So, and like I said, they're pre-gapped. You don't have to do anything. Makes life real easy in that regard. Look at how shiny it is. So all we're gonna do now, I tend to not put any NECs on my plugs, at least not iridium plugs. And the reason is because this is an aluminum block. And so you shouldn't need any of it on there, but just start it by hand. And I tend to like to just drive it as far in by hand as I can, because then I know that there's no cross threading whatsoever. There we go. We're just gonna, and once you get it tight, you don't want to, you don't want like uber German torque on these things. I'll put I guess I can look the torque spec up and let you guys know. So if you want to fully torque them according to factory spec, spark plugs get torqued to 15 foot-pounds. Now, may say I'm being a little anal when it comes to this, because most people, and I would say myself included, we'll just take and really snug them up. Make sure they're nice and tight. Me, I don't know. I just kind of reached that thing where it's like, you know what? I really want to make sure it's done correctly. So, there you go. And it's that easy. Now, before I plug everything back in, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a little bit of dielectric grease. I'm gonna put it on 2 spots on this sensor on this coil. First, I'm gonna put a little dielectric grease right down in there. And then the other spot is actually gonna be on the plug right down there. And just on those connections. So on the connections for the plug and on the plug for the spark plug. These just press down into place. And then, let me find my 10mm here. There it is. Just take your 10mm. Start it by hand, so make sure you're not cross-threading it. Get that down in there. Now on these, I couldn't find a torque spec for the coil bolts. So just get it to where they're snug and then give it a little extra turn. Doesn't even need to be like a 1/4 turn, just like an 1/8 of a turn. Get it nice and snug. And then plug that back in. And that's how you do it. So we're gonna do the same on the rest of these plugs. Like I said, the back ones are a little bit different just because you're on the back side. And that's where, like I said, having that swivel joint makes a nice difference on getting to those back ones. And I just don't use the second extension. But you're gonna do the exact same process for all of these plugs. And then once that's done, I'm gonna clean up this throttle body. I'm gonna clean this surface up as well, around where the gaskets go in. And then we'll take and put it back together and give you the torque specs for all that stuff. So see you in a little bit. All right, so I've cleaned these surfaces up. So time to pull all of these out. I've got my throttle body clean as well. So that's good to go. And then for my new gasket, so this is a Felpro MS97240-3. Nice and pretty. It's a full kit. Well, not a full kit, it's a majority kit, but it comes with a new throttle body gasket, which is nice. New ring for your tube if you want to use that, and then a set of O-rings for some of your various connections, such as your pressure sensor or pressure solenoid. This is real easy, only goes in one way, just like that. It just kind of sits down into place. Like I said, that's nice and easy. I'm gonna take and just kind of, it's not gonna fold out of the way. I was gonna fold it out of the way. Now, this is gonna go in exact opposite of how we put it in. So let's get all that out of the way. Now you do want to be careful to not move that gasket around. So you can't just yank it. You don't want to just, well, not yank it. You don't want to just shove it down in there. So just kind of want to go a little bit at a time. There we go. It's that easy. All right. So all I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna get these bolts started, make sure everything's lined up. I'm not gonna do anything other than that because there is a tightening sequence for these bolts. It's very, very difficult. Outside, inside out is how you need to work. And that is this the right one? Yes, it is. These are really, really long. So again, all I'm doing is just getting these started just to make sure I have everything lined up properly. And I don't cross anything, see? So like right there, that was a little tough to turn, so just needed to move that just that little bit. Again, when you torque these, it's going to be kind of an X pattern, I guess you could say, in order to torque them in. But they don't require a lot of torque, 17 foot-pounds for these. So pretty straightforward as far as all that goes. Let's get that one in. Obviously not tight, but in. There we go. And this is where that swivel does come in handy. To be able to have a little bit of an angle on these ones. And again, all I'm doing is I'm not tightening them down quite yet. All I'm doing is just kind of getting them snug. And not even like really putting any torque on it. Like I said, you can see all I'm doing is just using my fingers to turn this. And as soon as it gets snug, that's all I do. I'm not going to go anything more than that just yet. You can hear when it makes that contact. You can hear the metal make contact. All right. So now, take my torque wrench. Put it at 17 foot-pounds. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with this one. So what you could call the driver front. I'm going to move to this one here. A little bit of an awkward angle. Come down to this one. Driver rear corner. So basically what's happening is I'm leaving the two outermost ones for last. Sorry for the noise. I didn't have this one snug down as much. This sensor put in, so it's easier to put in as it sits. Now I actually just replaced this sensor, so I'm not going to replace that O-ring because it's basically a brand new O-ring. Because like I said, I just replaced the sensor. This one doesn't really have a torque spec on it. At least I couldn't find one. So it's just literally going to be a snug it up scenario. Make sure she's on there. Again, you don't need to do anything crazy with it. Just do a little tiny bit. Now, again, I am type to, I really like to make sure that things are done properly. So what that means is I'm going to be putting just a little bit of grease on all of these connections that I had unplugged. Doesn't take a lot. All right, that's down in there. So now, take my throttle body, my new gasket. And you notice I'm taking and I'm putting a couple bolts through right now, just like that. Ooh, don't do that. Because then I know everything lines up. If I do it this way. Back those off just a little bit. Some foam was sticking up, keeping me from getting this down in here. See, then I can just kind of get these started. And then I know that that gasket's not going anywhere. And that just makes life a whole lot easier for me. All right. These are going to get torqued to 9 foot-pounds, and once that's done, we'll keep putting it back together. All right, now back to this hose. This is the one that has that little retainer on it. Just gonna swing that around. There's that port. There it is. And the nice thing now is that it just presses on. You just hear it kind of click into place. So it makes life really easy. All right, before I get to those hoses, I want to do my wiring looms. So now for this hose, this hooks in there. Old Ford 7.3 going by. When you put this booster hose back on, press in on that gray, wiggle it on, and then press that clip to lock it in. Put that down out of the way. And before I do that, where did my sensor go? There it is. So you don't really have to unplug this. I did. You don't have to, but it does let me readjust this because I don't think you guys can see a thing that I'm doing here. There we go. So that's the sensor I didn't have to take off. All right. And then that back up. So this pipe can go into there. That's your PCV. Tighten this one up. fully seated. Tighten that one down. Now, get my engine cover put on. Now, again, if you have your oil cap off, now you would put your oil cap back on. There. Now, we get to test it. And hopefully, not have a misfire anymore. If we do, I can take that all back off and do my coil packs as well. But you already know how to do those because you just saw how to remove them. So anyway, so that is how you change out the spark plugs on these first gen Acadias, Traverses, Outlooks, Enclaves, all that good stuff with this 3.6 V6. So hopefully this helps you out. And always remember, take the roads less traveled.